Across the country, people are doing what they've been told. They're building emergency kits, they pay attention to alerts, they evacuate when ordered, and still they lose everything. Not during the disaster, but after it.
And homes that survive the storms can't be lived in. Insurance claims that don't cover recovery. Families who did everything right and yet still can't get back on their feet.
So the question isn't whether preparedness matters. It's whether the way we define preparedness still works. This episode is part one of our conversation with Ben Gilliland. We're not here to offer quick fixes or preparedness tips.
But what we are here to do is understand why preparedness is failing before we talk about what replaces it.
You're listening to DisasterClass Podcast by Instinct Ready Emergency Management. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to DisasterClass, the podcast that's dedicated to helping you educate, prepare, and equip yourself for life's disruptions. I'm Jason Perez, and with me today is Jason Martin, aka Pappy.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And today we're talking about a big fail point when it comes to preparedness.
And to understand why preparedness is failing, we needed to talk to somebody who looks at disasters from a very different angle.
Ben Gilliland has spent decades studying not just how disasters happen, but why recovery succeeds in some places and collapses in others. He's worked in construction, risk modeling, and disaster-resistant housing. And his focus isn't on the emergency itself, it's on what determines whether recovery is even possible afterward.
And you know what, Jason? That perspective changes how you think about preparedness.
Yeah, because it forces a harder question. If loss is predictable, why do so many people never see it coming? For decades, preparedness has been defined by response. Warnings, evacuations, shelter, survival. But survival is not recovery.
Hey, the storm's coming. Remember how we prepared that room? Or, hey, there's where the shelters are. You're under an evacuation order. You need to get out of that. And then the last piece of that, which is all going to be in this 2.0 version of the app, is recovery. Okay, we survived the storm.
Right.
Now we're going to plug you in with the FEMA rep, hopefully, the Red Cross guy, your local community support groups. Where can I go get water? Where can I get food? All of the recovery components that you're going to have that help with at that time.
That's the line most preparedness device never crosses. Getting through the event is treated as the finish line, but in reality, it's only the beginning.
So why don't people plan for recovery? It's not because they're careless, it's because they're human.
I would have to say it probably has to do with the attitude of NIMBY, in the sense it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
It's going to happen to the guy in the next neighborhood over. It comes back around to, I'm going to place a bet that it will not happen to me. I don't focus on recovery because I don't think it's going to happen to me. I think that it happens to the other guy. And what changes the calculus now is the fact is you can be that other guy.
And that assumption used to feel reasonable. But the world has changed. Risk is no longer rare. Loss is no longer isolated. And recovery is no longer guaranteed.
Before most homeowners realized preparedness was breaking down, one system already had, and that's insurance. Not because it panicked, because the math stopped working.
What's happening with insurance abandonment is a flaw in how property insurance has been written probably for 100 years. And that's where you have a risk pool, which is where part of your money, when you pay your premium, goes. And that's what they're betting that they've done their algebra correctly, that if I'm insuring 1,000 houses, I'm going to have 100 claims and I only need to take so much of this money that I'm collecting and put it in the pool. Now I have what's left over to play with. So when this insurance risk pool is effectively attacked by too many claims because you underestimated what those claims were, now you're going into your money that you make money with. You're going into the money that is paying out the dividends to the shareholders. And so something has got to give. If you can't write policies in that area because your modeling basically says, I've already had too many claims in this area already, the probability is high I will continue to have more claims, I have to make the decision to cut my losses and not write policies. Let's put it this way. The average insurance premium increase last year was 80% nationally. Really risk spots, 150% in super high risk areas.
Insurance didn't fail, though. It adapted. And in doing so, it sent a message most people missed. And that message is loss isn't random anymore. It's actually predictable.
And here's the uncomfortable truth. Traditional preparedness was never designed to prevent loss. It was designed to manage emergencies.
If you just put a new roof on, I hope that whoever it was that did it nailed it correctly. It's kind of like, oh, okay, I know that it's supposed to have 7 nails in this shingle, but I'm only going to put 5. You'd be amazed as how much difference those 2 nails do.
Yep.
And of course, whoever the roofer was just saved $80, at the expense of now the risk factor has gone up on your roof. Because obviously, if you lose your roof, you're going to have a rain problem and water damage that goes along with that.
So loss doesn't come from the disaster itself. It comes from small, identifiable failure points. And preparedness never taught people how to see them.
This is the gap we've spent years working inside at Instinct Ready. Not response, not fear-based preparedness, but the space between risk and recovery, where most people are left on their own.
And that's also the thinking behind the idea of a capable community. Not a community that replaces emergency services, but one that understands the risks well enough to make better decisions before systems are overwhelmed or unavailable.
Insurance companies can see where loss will happen. Markets are already pricing it in.
But most people are still preparing without ever seeing the risk that's right in front of them. They're asked to make decisions, but they lack the information that actually determines whether recovery is possible.
In part 2, we're going to ask the question this episode leaves unanswered.
If loss is predictable, how do you make that risk visible to homeowners and to communities?
What information already exists and who has access to it?
And also, what changes when people stop guessing and start seeing that risk the same way that insurers do?
That's where preparedness ends and something else begins. And we're going to learn about that in the next episode. Before we conclude this episode, please make sure you like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. If you have a question, a recommended topic, or just want to chat, send us an email at disasterclass@instinctready.com or drop us a message on our social media accounts at DisasterClass Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Disaster Class. Stay educated.
Stay prepared.
Stay equipped.
Class is dismissed. Head out to the playground. Disaster Class is brought to you by Instinct Ready Emergency Management. This episode was sponsored in part by Stop the Bleed Coalition. This episode was hosted by Jason Perez and Jason Martin, with a special appearance by Ben Gilliland. Disaster Class is directed, produced, and edited by Jason Perez. Copyright 2026, Instinct Ready Incorporated, all rights reserved.